Hey guys, Pastor Quinn here to help you prepare to teach this upcoming Sunday. Once again, I am not there this Sunday. I've returned from Romania by now, and now I am visiting with my family for just a few days before coming on back home. Trying to get some time in there with them and celebrate Christmas with them a little bit early before I come back and celebrate with you guys. So this week we are in Luke 2. We're at the beginning of Luke chapter 2, and now we have finally arrived to the actual birth of Jesus. All right, now this is the story everybody knows. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time here, but I do want to show you how the sermon will be broken down this week so you just have an idea of what to be looking out for. All right, so this week, like I said, we're in Luke chapter 2. We're going to start by kind of recapping what's going on. We're going to bring up that we had the prophets who delivered a message from God. We had angels that repeated that message that the prophets had, repeated it to Mary and Joseph. And now Mary and Joseph are bought in, they're sold, they're ready to have this baby, they're ready to honor and glorify the Lord in that. And so now we get to the story of Jesus' actual birth. We're going to break this down into three parts like any good Baptist preacher does. All right, so we're going to start with Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, where the family went to Bethlehem. Then we're going to go to the family had no place to stay, and then we're going to see that the family had a baby. All right, so the family goes to Bethlehem. Now, there might be a little bit of cultural context here needed to kind of explain this to the kids. For the younger kids, it's not as important, but for the older kids, they're going to need to know this because it's going to make more sense for them. We want to point out that they had to go into a census. A census is just a population registry. They just go and they figure out who lives where. Well, you see, Jesus was going to be the son of Mary and Joseph. And Joseph was of the tribe of Benjamin, right? Yes, the tribe of Benjamin. I almost said the wrong thing. Tribe of Benjamin. So then they go up to Bethlehem. Bethlehem has a couple of different names over the course of its history. So if you see the name starting with an E, Ephrathah, don't get too freaked out by that. So they go up to Bethlehem in order to do the census. And while they're there, Mary's super, super pregnant. They have to travel to Bethlehem. It's part of the cultural context. Mary's super, super pregnant. They find out Mary's about to have this child, and they realize that they don't have a place to stay. And so what we find out in Luke chapter 2, verse 6, is that they end up staying somewhere that has a manger, right? Because Jesus gets placed in a manger. Now, this could be a variety of things. It could be a barn. Likely, this was a place outside of the town of Bethlehem. And in this time, they had these house constructions. And in the bottom, they would have this space where the animals could come in when it was cold outside. And so most likely, and it's not definite, but most likely, we think that there's probably some of that happening. They go to stay at somebody's house. There's nowhere to stay with the bed, so they just have to stay underneath where the animals would kind of come in. At any rate, even though we don't know whether it was a barn for sure, if it was a house with a little space underneath, we don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is that Jesus was laid in a manger, which is literally a feeding trough, right? So think about the little wedge shape with a little flat bottom where the animals would drink or eat. That is what Jesus was laid in. And so that actually brings us to our third point, is that the family had a baby. As you know, that baby was Jesus Christ. And the connection we want to make here is that Jesus was going to be the king. He was the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Prince of Peace, wonderful, mighty counselor. And a king sits on a throne. And Jesus was on a manger. And it wasn't that the manger not being a throne made Jesus not a king. It's that Jesus, because he is a king, made that manger a throne. And that's an important thing to kind of think about, is that Jesus made that manger a throne because Jesus is the king. This will kind of help get us in the mindset to go to Genesis in January, because we're going to start talking about kingdom a lot more and what that means and why kingdom is so significant, and how later on in the Bible story, Israel wanted a king so bad, and they didn't even understand what kind of king they already had. They had a king in God. They didn't understand it. And so the idea of kingship, the idea that Jesus makes everything royal because Jesus is the perfect king, that's a really important theme that we're going to kind of trace as we move on into January. So again, really short video today. You guys know this stuff. Most of the kids know this. Now, you might encounter some of the kids saying things that are not actually true. So I want to really encourage you, since it's a short passage, 7 verses, especially in the older kids class, I'm going to challenge you to have them read this in class. I'm going to challenge you to have them do a little bit of observation and interpretation and application of their own. They're old enough at 8 and 9 to be able to do this to some level with some help. So I really want to challenge you. Say, okay, guys, what do you see here? What does this mean? If you don't know what it means, it's okay. I can tell you what it means. And then really press them to try to apply this to their life. What does it really mean that Jesus is our King, right? What does it mean that he came from a humble place, but he's still our king? What does it mean that this happened in Bethlehem? Hint, hint, all the prophecies pointed to this. If you go back and look at Micah 5, it said that, I think Micah 5:1 or Micah 5:2 says that he's going to be born in Bethlehem. This is a very big deal, very important. So just keep all this in mind as you are preparing this week. Again, this is a lesson that you know well, the kids know well. But it's a celebratory time. So just remember that we're celebrating that this promised awaited Messiah finally is on the scene. All right, guys, if you need anything, please reach out once again. I'm back stateside by this point in time, so I'll be able to respond a little faster, but I won't be able to respond immediately. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm glad to help you guys out. And we'll see you when I get back. God bless.